Hey everybody, how's it going? In this video, I'm going to try to bring everything that we learned together into one spot so you can have a better look at everything. So we start with our multi-line comment. And in this video, I'm going to make a small program that loops through all the numbers between, let's say, 0 and 100 and checks uh, uh, if the number is even or odd. Okay, and to do that, I'm going to use a for loop, an if statement, an else statement, the modulo operator, and I'm gonna comment on all of that step by step. Okay, I'm also gonna make a Boolean condition. And the Boolean condition, if you remember correctly, it is simply a true or false. So, let's start. For I, iterator, in range between 0 and an upper bound of 100. So, including the 0, but not including the 100. Okay? If the current number, I, you know what, let's change I to num, so we can know that it is a number, yeah, to number. If number is in fact even, so if it is even, that has to be divisible by 2. That means that there would be no remainder from 2. So equal, the relational operator, 0, then the colon, then enter. We have an indentation here because it's inside the if statement. Print the number is even. Now notice how there's an indentation after the for, and then there is another indentation after the if. You see, the for statement is at the top, and then within it we have the if statement. And then within that if statement, we have the print. Okay, what happens if this number is not even? Okay, so think of this as not even. Okay, so let's comment that. Sorry, even. And if it is not even, then we simply use the else statement. Now notice how I went backwards again, because I'm no longer inside the if statement. However, I'm still inside the for loop. So the indentation here is equal to the indentation here. Okay? Else, print this number is not even. Okay? Or let's just say odd. This number is odd. Okay? So that is basically it. Now, let's run this program. You can see here that these are the values. However, this is not very informative, right? I need to keep track of how many numbers are even and how many numbers are odd. That would be better, right? So, let's start by declaring a variable here and call it even amount. Okay? And this variable is going to be equal to 0. And then we're going to declare another variable. It's going to call it odd amount. And this variable is going to be 0. Now, these two variables, their only purpose is to count the number of evens and to count the number of odds. Now, how are we going to do that? Okay, so let's remove this statement right here. And I want every time I detect an even number, I add 1 to the even amount, just so I can keep track of the even amount. And on the other side, every time I detect an odd number, then all I do is basically I add 1, right? So let me just clear the screen. I clear the screen using CLS command. And after this is all done, I want to print out the value even amount and the value odd amount. Okay, let's have an empty print between them so they don't be next to each other directly. I just want some spaces between them. Okay, so the only purpose for that is just to have like a space between the two numbers. So let's run that. You can see on the side here there are 50 even numbers and there are 50 odd numbers. And that is the goal. So we learned how to add something to itself. We learned about comments. We learned about the if statements. We learned about indentation, the for loops, and how to use range. How that this value here could be called anything that you want. And multi-line comments. And that is everything that we have so far. Oh, we've also learned about and or statements, so maybe we want to incorporate that in another video. Or let's just do this right now, okay? Okay, so I've cleared up the screen. So now I'm going to use for loops, the if statements, and. Okay, I'm just going to use one of the logical operators. If you want to play around with the or and the not, feel free to do so. But I'm just going to use the and. Okay, so I'm going to make a program. And this program is going to check if the numbers are in a certain range and if they are even. So the numbers are from 0 to 100. I want to make a program that checks if it is between 50 and, say, 80. Okay? And they are even. So they're between 50 and 80, and they're even. Even and 50 to 80. Okay, so once again, I'm going to make a variable called the total amount, basically total amount of numbers that satisfy the condition, which is even and between 50 and 80. And, okay, so for I in range, let's call it number instead, for number in range 0 and 100, including the 0, but not including the upper bound, which is the 100. You know what? Let's include the upper bound. Let's just make this 101. Okay? If number percentage 2, just like the one before, is equal 0. This is the even one, right? Now, and it is between number is smaller than 80 and number is larger than 50. Okay, now as you can see, this looks a bit janky and it doesn't look very nice. So what I like to do personally is to do something like this when it gets too long, and I say condition 1, and then I take part of the statement right here and I put it here, and I say condition 2, and I take this statement right here, okay, and then you probably guessed it, condition 3. Okay, now I usually do it in a more efficient way, but this is for the purposes of explanation. Okay, so if condition 1 is true and condition 2 is also true and condition 3 is true, all these conditions have to be true in order for this if statement to be functional, right? If one of these are not true, this statement is not going to work. Print, so just going to add, if this is in fact true, I'm going to add to my counter the total amount 1. Okay, plus 1. So you learn that you can store the result of a condition into a variable. Because if you think about it, the result of this is a Boolean value. And so it's true or false. So really what we're comparing here is, let's say true, true, and for example, this could be false. We're not comparing this entire thing. We're comparing this after it has been processed into a single true or a false. Now, once this is all done, we're going to add this. You can add an else statement, and you can say just print it wasn't, or you can just, or you don't have to add an else statement. You can do whatever you want here. As long as you add the number here, then you've hit the objective perfectly. So here we have a for loop, a couple of conditions that are joined together using the AND statement, the AND operator, logical operator, and we add in a counter here. This is a very, very basic trick that you're going to use almost all the time to count things in programming in general. So learn how to use that. And we've used a modular operator. Okay, so now let's print the total amount so we can finish up this practice. And it turns out that there are 14 numbers that have these conditions applied to them. And that's it. I'll see you in the next one.